Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for waiting a few minutes. I would now like to formally declare the Submissions Committee hearing meeting open of the Colac Otway Shire Council on the 31st of January 2024. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance in our deliberations on behalf of the people of Colac Otway Shire. Enable this council decisions to be those that contribute to the true welfare and betterment of our community. Amen. I would like to start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians and lawmakers of the land, the elders past, present, and welcome any descendants here today. Please be advised that this Submissions Committee meeting is recorded and live streamed with the exception of confidential matters. This includes public participation sections of the meeting. The live stream recording of this afternoon's meeting will be available on the website as soon as practicable. By participating in the open submissions meetings, individuals consent to the use and disclosure of information they share at the meeting, including any personal and/or sensitive information. The purpose of this Submissions Committee hearing is to hear persons who indicated they wish to speak in support of their written submission for PP 219/2021-1, staged development of 27 dwellings, additions and alterations to existing buildings and reduction in car parking, 17 Balnagown Avenue, Colac. I note I have an apology from Councillor Chris Potter, who was unable to be with us tonight. I would now ask, are there any declarations of interest, please? No declarations of interest. I'll go on to confirmation of minutes. I propose that we move to confirm the minutes of the Submissions Committee meeting held on October 4, 2023. Do I have a mover? Thanks, Max. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Graham. Councillor Costin, is that to be opposed? Thank you. Verbal submissions from those submitters who have confirmed in writing that they wish to speak to their submission will be heard prior to the consideration of the agenda item. A limit of 5 minutes will apply to each submitter. Now? So we don't have the officers' report. So now I call on the submitters. We have Alison van der Linden, Julie Bedford and Lee and Jan Rich. Each submitter will have 5 minutes to address the meeting. Would the first submitter like to take the podium? Thank you.
Thanks. Look, I just wanted to put our concerns regarding the proposed development at Balnagown forward, and I also had a few questions. Talking with a few of the people around in that area, there are some shades of grey that they still don't quite understand. As we're aware, the development started some time ago. It seemed to lag for quite a long period of time. It picked up and now there are 12 dwellings there. So the question we're really asking is, where is it going to from here? What size of the land lots are going to be allowed for strata titled homes? Is it, according to the initial proposal, some of the lots being 120 square metres to 200 square metres? And if this is the case, which is what we were led to believe at the start, well, how does this work with council ideas about 400 square metres for dwellings? Because if that was the case, then surely people can take a block that's, say, 800 square metres and put 7 dwellings on it. So where is the line being drawn about this particular proposal, and where is it basically going to end up? Is this also stage 1, where there'll be 27 dwellings, and then there will be a further stage and a further stage? So these are some questions we want to know. It's not just me, there's quite a bit of confusion out there in the whole neighbourhood. and with other people who have a regard for that particular area. My second point, if such a subdivision goes ahead, it's going to be a massive increase in traffic. Now, we've already got 500 house blocks set to be built down at the end of Stoddart Street. 500 represents far more cars. So 500, at least there's 2 cars to every family most of the time. So that traffic is going to come down Stoddart Street, Moore Street. So we're now going to have that whole area, that whole precinct is going to be full of traffic coming through there, along with the proposed development in Bellnagown. So already along Alexander Street, along Sinclair Street, there are speed humps because of the problems with traffic going around there, way too fast. There's all sorts of issues that have been happening. So then if we multiply that at hundreds, I'm just confused as to how the planning committee are going to sort all of that traffic out. So that's the second thing. The final thing, and one of the most important things too, although each and every issue in my mind is extremely important, this area of Bellnagown, and I grew up right there in Hamilton Street, all around Bellnagown. I know that area very, very well. This is one of the areas, it was a precinct in Colac which has always been regarded as one of the most beautiful areas around Colac. And right as the jewel in the crown was Bellnagown House, the house there. Now what's happening is that those historic sites are not just about the houses, they're about the surrounds. We've seen it in Melbourne plenty of times, we've seen it with some of the examples around in Colac. If you take a beautiful house and you build up to the front door or you build up to the back door or wherever and you just surround it with units and all the rest, it's gone. The very, very thing that we all loved about that building has gone. We can't see it. So all of the surrounds, when you're trying to preserve a house, you should be preserving the grounds around it. So that house, when it was built way back, of course it had a massive land around it and it had a garden and it had all of the features to create that beautiful sense of that Scottish sort of house, historic house that it was based on in Scotland. If we continue to build right up around it, we've lost it, it's gone. And once it's gone, as we know, it's gone. It has totally gone. So they are my points. I think that we really have to think of the foreshore as one of our most precious and beautiful precincts in Colac. We have a few, but the foreshore is definitely one of them. So if we continue to build and develop and make high density buildings in this area, we're going to ruin the very thing that we want to create and enjoy.
Thanks,
Okay.
Alison. You 5 minutes. I'm just wondering, are you prepared to take some questions from councillors?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Councillors, do I have any questions? Councillor Arnott and then Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor White. Alison, thank you for your submission. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to come in here and talk to us. That's actually valued from a council perspective. You talked about asking what's the future look like for this and whatever. Have you actually seen the plans for the development?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hanson?
Oh, yeah, my question's along those lines too, sort of similar. Then what would your thoughts be around the future development of this land?
Look, if the land has to go ahead and have dwellings on it, absolutely, I understand that. I understand that the Riches have bought the place with the idea that they want to develop the land, and that is going to offset the cost of restoring the house. I understand all of that. I've lived in one of Colac's historic houses for most of my life, so I know the cost. However, it has to be done sympathetically. It has to be done in a way that there is landscaping, that there are trees, that it's not simply a land grab. It has to be done in a sense that it is still a beautiful area to walk through. Growing up, Belnagown Avenue was regarded as the Toorak of Colac. It had the most cutting-edge houses, it was beautiful, all of the gardens were landscaped. That is all happening again and again with new houses coming along, new sets of landscaping ideas. The council has put down trees, the footpath, which I see Marg walking along. It was one of the best things that happened because it meant that people could enjoy that area. All I'm saying is let's continue that sense of landscaping and reduce the number of units on there to make it a viable situation, and also not to destroy the very residential area there. That it's a beautiful area. It should be kept as a beautiful area.
Thanks, Alison. Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question is, I hear you mention that perhaps you'd be more comfortable with the idea of this development if it was to have less dwellings on it. What number is acceptable to
Look,
you?
I can't come up with a number because, again, it would have to go back to the drawing board. You would have to look at how you would do it, how you could incorporate it and still incorporate green wedges, keep the walking areas coming through, and work with all of those components. Now, putting all of that together again and revisiting it is not something I can sort of pluck out and just say, oh, well, I think, 10 would be acceptable or something like that. It depends on the size of the dwelling. It depends on the amount of land allocated for the dwelling. It depends on how car parks, how approaching into the development, exiting the development is all going to happen. So currently the way it is would just mean a huge amount of traffic coming in off Belnagown and off Stoddart Street.
One more question, Councillor Finnegan.
Is your issue mainly, and sorry if I'm reading between the lines here, but is your issue more with the fact that this may be, smaller size houses that are more affordable than the like, you may be worried about people from lower socio-economic backgrounds moving into this area?
No, not at all. I wouldn't have that opinion at all.
No?
I think that's, yes, that is definitely reading between the lines and something that doesn't exist in my mind.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Any further questions? Thanks, Alison. I
Good.
just acknowledge that you had a number of questions at the beginning of your submission, and you still have the opportunity and ability to forward those through
Yes.
to our planners to get
I have
answers.
discussed some of these with the planners and planning department already. Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks for your submission. Second objector is Julie Bedford. Julie, are you here and would you like to present?
My name is Julie Bedford. I hold a leasehold contract to reside in the Balnagowan Lifestyle Village. Please note my current objection, stands, and that I do not currently agree to the extinguishment of the 1986 Retirement Village Act clause under notice on the current land title. I would like to change phase 2 on the proposed application for planning permit, the part involving the 12-unit owners corporation, to become phase 1, a standalone phase 1, to be the start and completion to handover of the 12-unit owners corporation with all subdivisions in place to ensure complete separation from Balnagowan homestead additions and renovations and any other phases. I have asked many times for a contract to be put in place to stand alongside the current leasehold contracts. held by the 12-unit residents that will take immediate legal effect upon extinguishment of the 1986 Retirement Village Act clause under notices on the current land title. In fact, the land upon which the 12-unit owner corporation will stand upon should be clear of mortgages, notices, encumbrances, and be free to be transferred /sold to current residents at Balnagowan Homestead Proprietary Limited's expense. I ask the Planning Department to consider whether all relevant authorities have been informed and agree to the change of use from Balnagowan Lifestyle Village to what is proposed in this application for planning permit, the applicant being Lee Rich and the owner Jan Rich. I ask for all legal processes to take place for any transition to secure housing for the current 12 units. Up until now, it has all been verbal and nothing legally solid that's been proposed in writing for review and dispute, in brackets if applicable, and resolution processes. A proposal that advises all details for a solid, secure way forward. No more promises, put it in writing. No changes from a 52-unit retirement village to a 40-unit owners corporation to current planning permit. There is no legal or due process being followed. I need secure housing and not very insecure housing. I have been waiting 7.5 years, having paid $230,000 with no facilities, lack of communication and discussions on trying to find resolutions. Since the meeting in May 2019, I have been told that if I don't agree with the owner's change of use proposal, things will get messy. If I don't withdraw my objection, I will have to pay rent, and I assume that means that I won't be given a freehold strata title. If I withdraw my objection and pay for the labour of the proposed new fence to the west of my unit, that the manager will have the collapsed garage ceiling roof fixed. I have said no to all of those. If the council are really reviewing application, please consider reducing number of units in current stage 3, increasing number parking spaces, include an area within the 22 units, 22-unit owners corporation for bins to be lined up for collection. Otherwise, Unit 12, where I reside, will end up with a possible 22 bins outside, and that also applies to 22 bins outside Balnagowan and next to Unit 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Are you willing to take questions? Should any councillors have questions? No questions?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll now move on to submission by the applicant, Lee and Jan Rich.
First of all, thanks very much for hearing us today. There's a lot to cover, so I'm going to try and summarise it all very quickly. First of all, I'm reducing the development that I've got from 65 units down to 39 units, following the fact that the retirement village model didn't work. We tried for 8 years to sell the units. We sold 5 units in 8 years and it wasn't sustainable. So we've come up with another idea which I put forward to council of going down a path of subdivision. The reason I've reduced it down to 39 units is I've reduced all units that have no car parking. No garages, sorry. So all the units now have either got one garage, most of them have got 2 garage spaces. We've we've kept 3,000 square metres of land around the old mansion to maintain the stature of the place. It's all garden area, mainly around the front of the building, and that in itself is going towards saving the aspect of the mansion. I have no objections to 99% of the people in Balnagowan Avenue. They all support the project because they understand and they know what it was like before when we came there to take it to where it is now. We're proposing to provide 26 new homes to a very depleted market, but they're downsizing homes. We're obviously not going to be a retirement village anymore, but we want it to be a retirement estate. We still wanted to focus on the same sort of people that are there at the moment, and therefore we've built homes that are all single storey, they're stepless, so people can stay there for longer age, higher ages, disabilities. We've got 2 people in there at the moment in wheelchairs, and they live in the houses very successfully. We're building homes that complement the mansion. They've got 26-degree roof pitches. The tiles complement the same tiles as on the old mansion. Every second one is a tin roof. We're proposing mixed colours, facades for choices to offer diversity, and they're all single storey, so we're not overpowering the mansion. The mansion's extremely important to my wife and myself because that's why we're here, and we're living in it, and we want to stay there, and we want to build something that complements that mansion, and that's why we're reducing the number of units the way we have, and making sure there is enough parking. Regarding traffic, which is one of the main issues that keeps coming up, I have a traffic report from a qualified traffic engineer, and obviously haven't got time to go through it all here at the moment, but just to quickly say his summary on the last page is that based on the considerations outlined above, it is concluded there are no traffic-related reasons to prevent the proposed residential subdivision from proceeding. Overall, the traffic generated would have negligible impact on the safety and operations of the surrounding road networks. Out of the 12 people that live there at the moment, 4 of them actually don't have cars, and it is very low-use traffic. And we're trying to provide a place that people can downsize to and hopefully provide houses to become available in the town, bigger houses for people to purchase. I've gone to a lot of trouble and effort to try and maintain the building as close as possible to the original aspect of when it was built, and that's an absolute passion of mine, and that's why I'm here. It's certainly not for any financial reason. That's probably been the worst financial decision I've made in my lifetime. But we love living in Colac. I love living in the house we're living in, and we're passionate about making this work. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. You willing to take questions?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Hart.
Thank you for your submission and talking to us today. You said of the 12 units that I think you said only 4 of them have cars. Did I understand that right?
No, 4 don't have cars.
Oh, 4 don't have cars.
Yeah.
The people in those units, did they buy it at a retirement village? Were they of an older age?
We've got 4 in there that bought originally in the retirement village. All the rest now have bought after I had the meeting with senior members of the council regarding the proposed changes. So we changed the contract to say that it will be going down a path of a subdivision. So they knew that it wasn't going to stay a retirement village. But there is 4 there that did buy in as a retirement village.
So there'll be these new units that are proposed, there'll be no age restriction. Would that be a correct understanding?
I don't think I'm legally allowed to do that.
So
I think it would be discrimination.
So really you can't be sure what their car use might be because they might not be of the older age group.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. And when I sold the other 7, there was no age limitation either, but it's obvious that that type of housing is the sort of housing that a person wants to go to that downsizes, and usually that's an older person, I suppose. in the 21 lot area in the middle. We're not providing any area. In fact, I said to the planning department that I'm happy to put a caveat on it if we're allowed, to say that there's no parking of caravans, boats, trailers, anything like that to clog it up. Basically, if you can't fit it in behind the garage door, it doesn't go there. So that in itself, I think, will dictate the type of people that will probably buy into this place, because if they have got a big family with multiple cars and caravans and things like that, it's not the place to buy into, and we'll be encouraging that as much as we can.
And just so I understand the 12 units, I think you said the plan is to strata title those. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, they'll be in a body corporate on their own, the 12 units. There's 4 body corporates we'll be setting up. The main reason they'll be in a body corporate of their own, they've got infrastructure running through the front yards, sewer pipes, water pipes, things like that. So it's not really viable to strata tile them individually. So the only common land will be the front yards, and the rest of it will be their own.
And the submission we got from the unit, resident in Unit 12, talked about perhaps having a higher fence if the access road or whatever you want to call it goes past their property. Would you be prepared to have that as a condition of your permit?
Yeah, as long as it's in keeping with the rest of it, but they're all 6-foot fences anyway. I've deliberately kept away from the lower fences, so they've all got their privacy. I don't know whether you'd really want a fence higher than 6 foot. You certainly can't stand there and see over it. So, but yeah, privacy's imperative, and that sort of thing's not an issue to me.
Well, have you had any discussion with that unit holder to try to have a shared understanding about what is being asked for?
Yeah, unfortunately, Julie and I have had a difficult time for the last 4 years. At the moment, she's under a retirement advocacy group, and she's asked me not to speak directly with her, so I've been dealing through a person at the retirement advocacy group, which has been, I believe, fairly successful. I'm happy to talk to Julie anytime, and I always have been. I don't think this is really the platform I can go into those sort of details.
Yeah, fair comment. I mean, I'm struggling a bit as a councillor. I'm hearing that someone wants a higher fence, and you're saying, well, the fence is already high, and we don't have a process that can tease that out, and I would have thought it would have been useful.
I think what she meant, and if she wanted to clarify, she was talking about a high fence from the backyard right to the footpath of the street. I don't think there actually, it's a council requirement that you're not allowed to do that, especially when you try reversing out of your driveways, you can't see. So the front part of it you have to rake down so that when you're driving out of a driveway you can actually see traffic coming. But that would be well past the start of the house. I think usually those panels are probably about, say, 5 metres, I'm guessing, something like that. But from, definitely from the front of the house to the back of the house to the side, that would be a 6-foot high fence.
Thanks for trying to answer the questions.
That's okay. No worries.
Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for your submission. I guess you've made mention of the sort of retaining, I think it was 3,000 square metres of the garden and the like around the homestead. Is that correct?
Yeah, originally in the 65 unit submission that we had, there was a big area out the front. It was all bitumen for car parking for 30 odd cars, and we've had all that removed, and so it's all garden area, and it's what you actually see now around the building if you drive around there now. We've replaced all that now with multiple trees. We've planted driveway trees in the front yard and the side yard to try and re-establish what was taken away before my time. And I believe it's looking pretty spectacular. Our biggest traffic issue in Balnagowan Avenue these days is on the weekends with people coming to have a look at the building. I understand the significance of the building, and we're more than happy to be part of that.
And I guess as a follow-up question to that, with the gardens, obviously with the, as I understand it, the historic homestead being your home, essentially. Is that correct? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would the gardens directly out the front, or the majority of those, be sort of accessible to people living on the development or anything like that? Just seeing as you mentioned sort of the idea of retaining that 3,000 square metres.
Yeah, well, look, it's going to be private property, and we have no plans of fencing it off. But we have a lot of people come into our house from the development now. We have a street party once a year. Most of the street come to it. They were going to have it down the courtyard, but ends up in our sunroom. We have lots of. We had the T-Model Ford Car Club come past not long ago and stop out the front, and Jan took them in and took them through the house, and we do that sort of thing because we understand the significance of the building, and like I said, the reason I'm here is because of that building. I love it, and I drive past those sort of buildings and I just think to myself, I'd love to go and have a look in it. And so we do. We talk to them first and sum them up, and we think that they're fairly decent sort of people. We take them through and we show them the house, and a lot of people appreciate that.
Further questions? Councillor Costa.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if you could talk through how you plan to address the solid waste management, the garbage collection issue, because it's one of the concerns that's often raised as density increases, how garbage trucks access the premises and the actual where the bins are and the number of bins, because especially these days where there are 4 bins for each dwelling.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time with that with Simone, I think it is, in the council, and with Helen in planning. We've got 2 bin areas in the 21 unit section. The other 12 units plus the 4 on Stoddard Street, plus the 2 houses up the top of Bellingham Avenue and the old mansion, they have separate bins that put out on the street and have been for the last 8 years. The 21 units, there'll be 2 bin areas, and the bins will be wheeled out onto the street. We don't want garbage trucks coming into the development area. And they'll be large bins. They won't be the small rubbish bins. So typically, like I know Councillor Hart said that we can't dictate the age of people going there, but I think the development itself does that on its own. But I just know with the 12 people that are living there, I know I could go along and empty all those bins into 1 bin each week and they'd be struggling to fill it. There's just not the amount of garbage. So that's why we propose the big bins and community bins, not just a single bin for each houses, because it's not viable. If there's 39 houses all up with 4 bins each, it's crazy.
Yes, I agree. So if I understand correctly, all the bins will be wheeled out onto Stoddard Street,
Yeah.
then, rather than the garbage truck accessing
No, half to Stoddard Street and half to Bellingham Avenue. So 1 bin storage area will be up near the old mansion, the other bin storage area will be next to the car parking. There's 5 car parking spots
I can
there.
see that. Yep.
So there will be a requirement in the body corporate for the 21 units for a maintenance or garden person, and that person will put those bins out, I would think.
Thank you.
Unless they want to do it themselves.
Yep.
That's their choice as a body corporate to set up.
But there'll be communal bins.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the 21 unit area.
Thank you.
Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to come back to one of the initial. Sorry, I'm just going to move this so hopefully it doesn't feed back so much. Come back to one of the issues that has been raised around the original development and it having been originally planned as a sort of retirement village, I guess, and noting that some residents have bought into this development as a retirement village and have expected certain things to come along with that and things that may not have eventuated given the how things have played out. And I guess my question really is, if this development does end up going forward, how do you sort of plan to, deal with those issues and make things right with those people who have sort of purchased those properties as a retirement village?
Yeah, great question. And that's very much been on my mind because, and I have talked to those 4 people over the years about this, and how they've been living now for the last 8 years, 9 years for some of them. Nothing will change. If I understand when they bought into that, we were going to have a community centre, and that's the big difference between what they've got now and what they were going to get. And the community centre was going to be the old mansion with a gym and a cafe and all sorts of things. Because we couldn't sell the concept. We couldn't go ahead with that. But what was created as well is we've got unsaleable units. And I proved that over the 8 years, we just could not sell these units. People in Colac did not want to buy that concept with deferred management fees, with maintenance fees, with the loan lease. And so I was told constantly by real estate agents, and in the end it was Stephen Lugg that said to me, he said, look, I'll just be 100% honest with you, Colac's not ready for this. And he said, you're 10 years ahead of your time. So what I propose by doing what we're doing here, so all those units at the front, they'll be virtually a independent unit. It will increase the value by at least $100,000. They won't be worth 230 anymore. They'll be worth 350 and above. They'll be able to sell those units if they want to go to a retirement village and buy one and be debt free. And to me, that's a great opportunity, a great outcome. Or they can stay there and under the same circumstances that they're there now. I would have loved to have stayed at a retirement village. That wasn't my choice.
Any further questions, Councillor Arnott?
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that you're coming here to speak with us like this, and for everyone who's done so already. I'm just expanding on Councillor Finnegan's question there about what's happening in there. I think unless I misheard you, 4 body corps are going to be set up. Is that correct, to oversee the ownership or the management of these properties? Is that correct?
No, not 4 body corps. There'll be 2 body corps. Yes. One will be for the 12 units. Yes. The other one will be for the 21 units.
Yes.
Now, the 4 units are going to be built on Stoddard Street. They'll be independent, each house independent. They'll have their own...
So they'll be on their own titles?
They're on their own titles.
Yep.
The 2 houses in Balnagowan Avenue, and exactly that, 2 houses on their own titles, completely separate. So we've taken away all the units on Balnagowan Avenue. The only extra development now being done on Balnagowan Avenue is 2 houses.
Right. And so the existing 12 that we talked about, they'll be in their own body corps.
They'll be there in their own.
And within that, they'll be able to sell their own property, if you like, within that, whatever that title makeup is on the body corps. Yeah. Okay. All right. And have you had any feedback from those 12 people about their view of a body corp?
Oh yeah, lots of feedback.
Yeah.
And like I've explained to them, and I've actually spoken to Clark and Barwood about it, because they set up body corporates and that, and basically it's up to them what conditions they want to create this body corporate. It's not up to me, it's up to them as a group to decide their own conditions in the body corporate. And so they need to get together and have that ability to do so.
All right. Okay. And there was just that other question. Councillor Costin asked about the rubbish disposal and that, or how it was going to be managed within that. I guess there's not a lot of room inside in those streets internally, and I was just curious as to how you see that really working. You've got people that may be quite some distance away from those communal bins. How do they manage that? Do they have smaller bins that are wheeled by a gardener out to that, or your person? I'm just wondering how this is going to work.
Look, that can certainly, I guess, be set up by themselves if they do that. But we're really trying to avoid bringing garbage trucks into the development.
Yeah, I get that process.
And so I think that would be probably a very clever thing, rather than trying to carry the rubbish around there. Maybe once a week wheel their own little bin around and empty it into the bigger bins. But to be honest, most of the rubbish that I see that go into these bins from these houses is lucky to be one bag of rubbish in a week. You know, they have their kitchen tidy, and they'll probably fill that up over the week. And I know that's generalising, but I don't see that as being a major problem with the rubbish.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Rich,
Thanks very much.
for your presentation. Now we'll move on to whether councillors have any questions of officers. Any questions? No questions. Oh, sorry, Kate. Didn't see you. Councillor Hanson.
It was mentioned, and I guess you can look into this, I think, by the applicant, that you could possibly put something in place that would stop people parking caravans, or what is it? A caveat to stop, people parking caravans or trailers or whatever on the streets. Is that possible? You can take it on notice if you have to. I am happy with that. I would have asked anyway.
Through you, Mary, no, I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page on this one. So we can certainly look at putting covenants on title. This sort of covenant is normally one that's done through a transfer of land rather than through the planning scheme. But we certainly have made a note of the applicant's advice that he would be prepared to accept a restriction like that. So we'll give that thought when we're actually writing the report and going through the merits.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'm not sure if this should be for the planning committee meeting itself, but my question is there any density limit on how many dwellings you can put on any particular block in that area?
Through you, Mayor. The land is in the general residential zone. So there are standards and objectives set in the planning scheme for the amenity and the car parking and relating to matters such as overlooking and overshadowing that have to be taken into account when you actually look at development within the general residential zone. This application isn't actually for subdivision. But if it were, in effect, a permit is required if a lot is less than 300 square metres in the general residential zone. If a lot is over 300 square metres, you don't actually require a planning permit under the provisions of the zone. So really, it's once you start getting under 300 square metres that the provisions kick in to start really looking closely at the amenity provision, the amount of secluded private open space, the amount of parking that's available to a dwelling, and they're very specific standards that we are required to assess developments against. The planning scheme, as I say, has both objectives and standards. If standards are met, then it's considered that the objective is also met. If standards are met, the development is considered compliant with the planning scheme. And VCAT has made quite clear if it's compliant with the planning scheme, a permit should be issued. So we'll be looking very, very closely at things like secluded private open space, orientation, parking requirements, all those matters for every single individual dwelling that's proposed. So there isn't a set, you can only go to a density of X. It comes down to the standards of amenity that are available for dwellings.
Councillor Hart.
So I think you said if a density was less than 300 square metres, it would need a planning permit. Are we going to be told, and perhaps I've missed it, what the density is for the different stages of this development? Not so much for the one where the 12 units are already there, but particularly for where there's new units planned in a stage, will we be told, well, that's an average of so much? Will that be very clear in the report we'll get?
Through you, Mayor, I'm assured, yes, it will be in the report. What we will be assessing is primarily the development, obviously, because subdivision isn't proposed under this current application. So we'll be carrying out a detailed assessment against clause 55, which is where you have multiple units on one lot. But as I say, we will cover off on density as well.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. I mean, look, just going to clarity here. There's saying that this is not for a subdivision, and I accept that in its context, other than that we've got 12 units which are going to be put aside into a body corp. Then we've got another few units that will be facing Stoddard Street and another 2 houses on Belnagown Avenue. Are they not subdivided? So is this not a subdivision in that context?
Yeah, at this point, we are literally looking at multiple units on one lot that contains an existing historic building or dwelling,
Yep.
and 12 other units. All of those are currently on one lot. All the proposed 27 units would be built on the same lot. No subdivision is proposed, so no titles would be created at this point. However, it's quite likely that we would get a subdivision application subsequently to actually create titles for the dwellings.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No further questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Finnegan, do I have a seconder? Is it to be opposed? Councillor Finnegan, wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's submitted today. It's very important for us to hear from all sides of an issue, I guess, when submissions like this, when matters like this be considered by council. It's very important to hear the diversity of views, and we can go away, consider everything, and then come back and make a decision at a later date. So thank you all for taking the time to be here.
Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor White. I'd like to echo Councillor Finnegan's comments and say thank you to everyone for coming here, and to reassure everyone that we come here with an open mind. There's no decisions have been made before here today, no decisions have been made from today immediately. There's more things to come to us. We will make our determination in an appropriate manner, keeping in mind that everyone who's made a decision here is an affected party and is a ratepayer and has equal rights. So thank you.
Any other councillor wish to speak? No. So councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried 6-0. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. Thank you to the public for coming along today. That concludes the Submissions Committee meeting of the Colac